Happy Tuesday, cold, chilly Tuesday. As you guys are coming in, if you would be so kind as to introduce yourselves in the chat to one another. We should have about 17 people joining us tonight.
And I put the sign-in link in the chat, so I'm not asking you to multitask, but after you've let us know who you are, make sure you sign in. Welcome, Rachel. Hi, Melanie. Now it's going fast.
Yeah.
Hi, Lisa and Jessica.
Well, hopefully everybody had a nice day of staying home and warm and maybe a little extra time sleeping in.
Two Susans. Welcome to both of you. Hi, Nan and Katie. And I'm adding the sign-in link one more time to the chat. Lisa, is it opening in a different browser for you and it's still really small?
I think it's the same browser that I'm using, which is Chrome. Oh, wait. For some reason, it's opening an Internet Explorer.
Oh,
I assume it's on Chrome. It's opening on Internet Explorer. I think I can figure it out. I'll just have to stare at the screen really close.
Okay. If
I
not,
wonder, I
we'll help
wonder
you
if
out.
you
That's not a
copy.
problem.
I just threw the full link in. Maybe if you copy and paste that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we're going to get started. I know a couple people are still trickling in, but Laura and I are um, excited to start this computational thinking journey with all of you. So we're excited that you're here and um, thankful that Mother Nature may have prevented some of you from being in person today, but thankful that we have technology that we can go ahead with our virtual meeting that we had planned originally. And so the purpose of today is to just introduce you to the project, give you some of the nuts and bolts of what we're planning to do, how the course is going to be organized, and hopefully at the end of this evening, you'll feel a little more comfortable about how we're going to proceed and move forward. And so we thought we would just start with a little warm up before we even get into any of the details of the course. And so our warm up has you looking at a half a dozen images and just take a look at those and what patterns do you notice? What might resonate with you? And for this, feel free to use the chat or just simply unmute and share some of your observations on patterns either within a single image or across multiple images. And there's no right or wrong here. We're warming up to this idea of patterns and pattern recognition. They're all black and white. That's definitely a pattern throughout each of those. And again, feel free to unmute as well. Some look like geometric 3D blocks. We have patterns ranging from the geometric to more of a whimsical abstract. Most are swirly, two opposite ends are rigid lines, almost like an optical illusion. And although these are images, some of you may already be the type of person when you're just out and about, when you're looking at tiles on the wall or wallpaper or different architecture, depending on where you're at, um, starting to name and notice some of the patterns that are built into the design of different structures and again, wallpaper, tiles, things that are just naturally in our house. Yeah, some of them do look like they're moving if you stare at them for too long. So we're starting with this activity. We're not going to end with this activity so that nobody goes away with dizzy eyes. But just a little warm-up activity. That patterns are everywhere, and we thought that we would start with something really simple just to get us thinking. So again, the name of this course is Bridging Computational Thinking and Literacies, Cultivating Creative Minds. And so with that, I am Judy Bowling. So I am currently serving as an instructional technology consultant and library consultant at Wayne Risa. And Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Laura Gabriel. I'm a literacy consultant at Wayne Risa.
And some of you may recognize some things if you've taken a PL in the Box course by Sarah Wood. So Sarah, if you know Sarah, she's amazing. And so we were inspired by her work to replicate the model of PL in a Box and use it for delivering professional learning around computational thinking. So we just want to recognize Sarah because she did inspire the work that we're doing. But then we also wanted to give a shout out to MDE because the funding for this course came from the Implementing Effective Use and Technology grant. And so I know there was a minimal charge for each of you to participate, but the cost of all of the materials and the professional learning did come from this grant. So again, we wanted to just give them a shout out. And so our objectives for today are, again, just to give you sort of an overview of, oh, I think this is Laura's part. Laura, I'm stepping over yours. I'm like, that's why I was like confused. So sorry. You
Oh
go
my
ahead, Laura. You
gosh. I
tell
think
them what we're going to be doing.
we could say it together if we needed to, but we really are hoping that by the time you leave this evening, you'll know why, you're here and why you've signed up for this particular course, that you'll learn strategies throughout the course that you can use right away, but also even tonight, we've got some things that would be new possibly for you to learn about and use in your classrooms, that you'll gain new knowledge. And really, we're hoping that tonight and throughout the entire course that we're embracing that growth mindset. Definitely, there are aspects of our PL in the Box that are difficult for me, but as one of our colleagues often says, it pushes us at our growing edges.
Now it's my part again. So the next few slides, again, we're just going to give you sort of an overview of how the course is going to be managed. And so we obviously have tonight, which is synchronous, where again, it's just some nuts and bolts and a little introduction to computational thinking. And then the rest of it will be asynchronous, and then we will meet again in February. And so this presentation we will share in a follow-up email for this. So we will continue to send out weekly emails to everybody. And then Laura and I are an email or a phone call away at all times as well. But your home base for this course really is going to be the virtual room. And so everything that you need is linked on there. And right now, if you were to go to that, there are two that are not linked, and that's the Mastery Checked and the Final Project. And we will be linking those, but we've intentionally not linked those yet just because we're not at that point, and we will link those up at the end of our second meeting together. But again, this is sort of your home base, your dashboard, if you will. And so your resources from the directions to help to the folder icon there will have digital files. Right now, there's just the one digital file that you've received the paper version of in your box, but we will be adding more. And so we want to just make you aware of that. And then a handful of you have already done the scavenger hunt, but we want to encourage you to do the scavenger hunt for two main reasons. One is to get sort of a feel for just navigating the different resources that we'll be using, but also it's your opportunity to give us a screen name so that when we're tracking materials and sharing everyone's progress for sketchies, you're not identified by your real name. So nobody but Laura and I will know who is who, but it'll give you sort of a bird's eye view where you're at, where everybody else is at. So we need you to do the scavenger hunt to give us that screen name as well. So if you have not done it yet, that's not a problem, but the link is in there, and it's also on the virtual room that you can do that there as well. And it also gives us feedback for what your needs are. Like, for example, somebody had put in there about getting the emails, and that is something that we absolutely will be doing throughout the course. And so this learning structure of this whole PL in a Box is rooted in the modern classroom framework. And so on one hand, we all know that it's impossible to get out of the classroom during the day for a variety of reasons. Even meeting tonight at 6 o'clock, depending on your schedule, it might be difficult. It interferes with the schedule of your kids, maybe dinner time, things come up. And so part of the beauty of this is that it is self-pacing, so you can do it when it fits and feels right for you and your schedule. It's a blended instruction, and so we've got, like tonight, we've got the Zoom part of it. We'll be communicating via email. We've got a lot of digital resources for you to track your learning, but then also Laura and I will be responding to things, and so it has a lot of different modalities, giving you the chance to, again, do it when it works best within your schedule. And again, Laura and I, like almost daily on our own on our own calendars, we put them as reminders, sending out weekly emails to each of you. We're looking at the Padlet, which is where we'll be documenting our learning, and that's where we're also tracking for sketchies. And so there's a lot of different components to this. In some cases, there'll be slide decks that will be shared. Sometimes there'll be videos. We'll be using a couple different tools tonight. But the key of it is that it is self-pacing. We've put a lot of thought into the content behind there. We ran this last year, and as with anything that you run, you always get constructive feedback. So we have made a few changes, but we're excited about those changes, and we think that you will as well. And so throughout the end of this, we hope that there is not only the learning of the content, but the process as well. And so the other thing that you should have received in your box, but if you misplace it, it is also linked in that virtual room. But this is your self-pacing learning roadmap. And what we'll be doing in the second box, a big clue, is the visuals that you see on the screen. It may or may not be connected to the zoo, but on this roadmap, this is just for you to track kind of where you're at in the learning journey. And so anything that is yellow that says must do, those are the things that are not only connected to sketchies, but also scaffold into the next thing that we'll be doing. And so the may do's, you can earn sketchies, but they're not as core to the final project that we'll be doing. And then the aspire to do are things that we would say are more optional. And then in your boxes, except for the last couple boxes that we sent out, because we had a couple add-ons at the end and we forgot to put this in, but we also want to acknowledge that, especially in Michigan, I mean, it's a stressful time of year just with teaching. It's cold, it's gloomy. You guys are juggling a lot of different things. So in your boxes, we also included some things to just maybe take a little mental break. And so with mindfulness in mind, there were some widgets, some snacks. The QR code on the right for the virtual calming room has a variety of things from, animal live cams to yoga to meditation to just calming music and things of that nature. So put it in there as a hope that that might help you take a break throughout this course.
Okay, so, you might be wondering why we are, maybe not why we're excited about you joining us, but why you've decided to participate in this particular professional learning series, what you're going to learn about computational thinking, and maybe you're thinking, I've never thought about doing a PL where it comes right to my door and I'm unloading a box of goodies. But we're going to kind of give you some kind of backbones to all of this learning. So when you think about just the fact that we are trying as, two facilitators to tap into those adult learning principles, we want to create a situation where it's safe for you to learn. It's that you obviously have come to this learning experience with a certain amount of, your own personal history and background with both literacy and with, computational thinking perhaps, or coding. You might, need to know why you're learning something. So as an adult, you want to engage in professional learning, that you're guided in, what's the reason, what's the purpose for me learning this? We definitely want to create agency in your learning, and give you a way to internalize this learning, because through our activities and through our engagement, especially with a problem-centered approach, we do tend to internalize that and transfer that kind of learning. And of course, a lot of times when we're tapping into those adult learning principles, we're thinking about that you want to learn. We want to think about, just the, kind of PD that's going to change your own personal practices, things where you're involved in intensive learning. You're thinking about ways that you're being empowered as a teacher, but also how you're giving your students agency. And that's that idea that teachers are going to learn a new skill well enough that it will positively impact student learning after approximately 50 hours of professional development. Well, we're not going to force you into 50 hours of professional development, but this plants a seed. You've got 15, and we'll plant that seed of a way for you to think about how this might be something that you do with other teachers, for example, or with your students. Definitely, it's action oriented, it's intentional, and you'll notice that we are collecting data of our own, but you're invited to collect data about what's happening in your classrooms as you partake in this. So when we think about why we want to integrate computational thinking, definitely, computational thinking skills are life skills. And in my humble opinion, we are solving problems every day. I couldn't figure out how to get a shorter link to the Google form earlier this 2 minutes before you all logged in, trying to problem solve the changes to just a Google form, and share with you something that was simpler than a 7-line link. We want our kids to do that too, because just like us, they're going to move into a life of, adjusting and adapting according to the problems that they encounter. Probably one of the most exciting things for me is that this really does develop their self-efficacy, because when you think about what develops self-efficacy and agency, you think about kids being able to master something. But to master it, they also have to have a chance to maybe not succeed the first time around. They might need to grapple with a little bit of failure and not be afraid of that. Similarly, we are going to encounter that a little bit as adult learners. Just maybe one aspect of this peel in a box isn't your wheelhouse, but you're going to push yourself and grow in that space so that you can guide kids in that same kind of learning. We think that project-based learning is really probably at the foundation of all learning that transfers, and that it stimulates critical thinking. And then when we think about looking at computational thinking, it shouldn't be a standalone. We really want to integrate it with something that's already going on in our curriculum. So in this case, we're looking at early literacy read alouds as being kind of that integration point. And of course, too, we want that competency with innovation and technology. We've woven that in as, in many ways throughout the course, even this evening. And we hope that computational thinking skills will lead to increased interest in computer science, which, we will need probably, forever going forth. At least is all I can anticipate. And again, just that idea, the critical thinking and problem solving capabilities. But when you think about the way that this intersects with literacy, what we're going to dive into is the key features of the ELA standards focus on reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. But we're going to look at the integration. Obviously the standards themselves are student facing. So we look at the standards from this is what the child can do or will be able to do by the end of whatever grade level. The essential practices are teacher facing. They're how a teacher can get the kids to the mastery of those ELA standards. So we're going to look at mostly practice number 2. But what I just said this in a meeting earlier today, they're all integrated. So when you're working on read alouds, you're still working on abundant opportunities to read. You might be grouping students, you might be tapping into some vocabulary instruction. You're definitely embodying that ongoing assessment of their language and literacy development. So it truly is all integrated, and we look at CT as a way to integrate that even further. And when we think about all the things that we do on a daily basis, all the myriad professions that we can go into, and the just the daily activities we engage in, problem solving stretches through all of that. And CT gives kids and us as problem solvers ourselves some vocabulary, some ways to think about breaking down those problems so that a solution is manageable.
So with that, we're going to just jump in a little bit to computational thinking tonight. And so we are going to do that by using a FigJam, and Laura's going to put that link in the chat. If you have never used FigJam before, you may be asked to link it, to sign in and link it to your Google account. But if you could click on that link and give folks a moment. So if you're not familiar with FigJam, it is a collaborative whiteboard that has no boundaries. And so if it's your first time using it, it might feel a little overwhelming. You might feel lost with it. So I'm going to just give a couple of navigation tips. You can, if you are using a mouse, hold down the control key and use your trackpad to scroll in and out, zoom in and out. If you've got a trackpad, if you just pinch your fingers in and out, you can zoom in and zoom out. And if I click on who's in this room, if you were to click on my profile picture, if I spotlight me, it will give you the opportunity to follow where I'm at so that you can follow me on this FigJam. So what we're going to do is use this as a means to see who's in the room. So if you can get yourself over to where these little cameras are, these retro cameras. And so there's 3 cameras there, but if you just click on the little red dot, we might have to take turns for that. You should be prompted with a little photo booth, and you can just smile, and a little Polaroid picture should come out with your name on it, and move that over to the yellow canvas, and that'll give us a chance to document who was in the room on our very first meeting together. So again, if you need to zoom in and zoom out to see that red button, or if it's too small and you can't get your mouse right over there, I find if you just zoom in real big, you see how my cursor changes from a pointer to a hand. So it's the red button you want to click on. And if somebody else's cursor's there, just give them a moment to snap their photo. If it's your first time doing that, you might have to allow your camera to talk to FigJam, but we would love to see who's in the room. So take a photo. And if you logged in and connected it with your Google account, your name automatically appears. So this is a fun way, especially if it's virtual, to bring some community. So for the next couple months, we are going to be a virtual cohort. So to be able to put faces to names as you will be, you'll be responding to people using their screen names, but know that these are the people in the room, even though you may not know who is connected to what screen name. But give folks another moment to take some candid photos. If it's your first time doing that, you should have like a pop-up. In most browsers, there's like a pop-up window that comes up towards the top that'll say, will give permission, allow your microphone, allow your camera to talk to it. Yeah, so if it's black and static, your browser doesn't know to talk to the camera yet. All right, we'll give folks a few minutes to continue to add your photos while you're taking turns. I'm gonna move over to the next section. And before we start talking about computational thinking, we would love to know what you think or what you know about it already at this point. So we would invite you at the bottom of the page, there's sticky notes, and you can pick which color you'd like and just drag a sticky note to the top. And again, if you zoom in, that will allow you to see the text maybe a little bit better. And you can click and drag them to a different spot so you're not overlapping somebody, but just take a moment and share what you know about computational thinking at this point. And again, if you're lost on the page and you have followed me, you can click on my icon and it should jump you to where I am right now on this FigJam. So again, if you're still taking a photo of yourself, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, come on over to this section and start. You can put one idea per sticky note. You can put all your ideas on a single sticky note, but we're just interested to see where folks are at right now. Yeah, and thank you. So, and down at the bottom, Laura is demonstrating the stamp. So down at the bottom, there's a stamp button. So if there is something that somebody has said that resonates with you and you want to give them some love with one of these sticky notes or stamps, go right ahead and you can give them a thumbs up or a heart. So I see, and it's okay if you're entering into this zone not having any background knowledge, like you are in the right place. If you are coming in and you feel like I see some folks have been through maybe some workshops before, you are in the right place because part of this is not just Laura and I sharing information. It really is the community that we're going to be building together. So we want to learn from one another and share ideas and resources because, as Laura mentioned, one of the biggest things with computational thinking is that it really is integrated into everything and that it's not a separate topic in and of itself. I would hazard to guess that nobody has time in their schedule to add one more thing. You're probably already struggling with how do you fit in what you already have. And so this is a way that we're going to bring in common language. We're going to be more intentional, maybe about lifting some of the things that you're already doing. And so the things around the problem solving thinking, critical thinking skills, and yes, it can oftentimes is associated with computing, but doesn't necessarily have to be computing. Um, Great. So we've got a handful of folks who've had some background knowledge in computational thinking. So excellent. Like we'll be looking forward to having continued conversation, taking bigger pieces and breaking them down into smaller pieces, maybe knowing it under a different name. And I think sometimes too, and we'll talk more about this in a bit, but even just thinking about it through the lens of creative problem solving and that um, it's really incorporating some strategy. So we oftentimes have kids or ask kids to be problem solvers, but what does that look like? And so computational thinking is going to help give them some strategies to do that. So, so the design engine thinking process, yeah. So there is some overlap in some of that because there's a lot of problem solving and critical thinking that goes through that thinking process. So I think you'll see some overlap with that. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for engaging in that and for taking your pictures. Feel free that this FigJam's going to remain open, so if you did not get a chance to get your photo in there, we would invite you to come back and do that later. And so the last thing that we would invite you to do is just in general, we a little bit of this was lifted in the sticky notes that were just there, but if you want to go down there and grab one of those stamps, and just on this scale, where are you feeling that you're at right now in your familiarity with computational thinking? Are you on the left, you're more of a novice noodler and you're like, this is all new for you, or all the way to the right, you've got a lot of experience with it and maybe you're participating in this just to get some additional ideas and materials and books and things of that nature. So grab a stamp and add that in. And there's no right or wrong here. This is actually just really helpful for Laura and I too to see that we've got a wide range of experience here, which is great. So again, if we just lean into that idea that we're going to be a community of learners for the next couple months, um, and we share what we know and share ideas and really embrace the connecting and commenting on our Padlet, that's going to be a really powerful learning experience. So great. Well, thank you guys for participating in that. And again, we'll leave that open. You can come back to that at any time. So I'm going to jump back here to our slide deck. And so as we mentioned, how we're framing computational thinking is around a set of strategies for creative problem solving, for solving complex problems. And as Laura mentioned before, I mean, you guys, all of you guys know, like, I feel like every 15 minutes I've got some kind of a problem that I've got to struggle with, whether it be something work related, personal related. You know, I've got a car that doesn't have anything remote or automatic, and so in this kind of weather, like I feel like my key is always getting frozen. I can't open up my door, so like I've got a problem that I need to solve. So we are constantly confronted with problems, and so where computational thinking is going to come in is the strategies. Again, it's going to help give those building blocks, if you will, for helping kids be critical thinkers and to develop those higher level thinking skills. And this quote by Dr. Karen Brennan resonates with us in that it's not about becoming a computer scientist. It's not about becoming a computer programmer. It really is a foundational practice that really we all need to know. And so it's about computational fluency for everyone and the ability to think and create. And the thing that I often think about in my, and Laura's heard this, but in my former school, before I came to RISA, we were a Leader in Me school. And we really leaned into the 7 habits. And one of the things as a teacher that I really appreciated before learning about those, I would oftentimes say to kids, you know, about being respectful, about being responsible, but then never really thinking about like, well, what does that look like? What does being respectful look like? You know, how do I, what does responsibility look like? And so the 7 habits gave the language and the skills and the strategies for being those things. And that's how I think about computational thinking, is that it gives the vocabulary, it gives the strategies, it gives the building blocks for our kids to be problem solvers, to be critical thinkers, to give them that computational fluency. Will some of them maybe go on to be programmers? Maybe. Will some of them go on to be in careers connected to computer science? Maybe, but they don't have to be. But we all, and all of our students need to be problem solvers. And so that's really the lens at which we're approaching this. And so, you know, thinking about their thinking, thinking about their problem solving, applying those in some cases directly to computer and technology. And in the case of this particular course, we're going to be really lifting the connections to literacy, but then we'll also be spoiler alert, we'll be doing some coding and some making in the second half with the second box that you'll be receiving. So we're going to jump into one more activity here that Laura's going to get us started with.
All right, everyone, you should be able to click onto this little slide deck that we've got, and we're going to put you in, let's see, how many of you guys are there? There's 12 of you. What do you think, Judy? 4 groups? We'll ignore the 5th slide. 4
Yeah.
groups, 3. Okay, we're going to put you into breakout rooms in just a second. So what's going to happen is in a minute, I'm going to open up the rooms. You're going to use that slide deck to go to your group according to your room number. So group 1 will go, room 1 is group 1, room 2, group 2, etc. And you're going to include the 5 steps to making whatever it is that you've been assigned to make. So collaborate with your group. Think about if you could just boil it down to 5 steps, what it would take to make whatever that is, grilled cheese, strawberry shortcake, etc. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the rooms. Welcome back, everybody. It looks like we've got our first one up, grilled cheese. Does anyone from group 1 want to walk us through this, the process that you took to make a grilled cheese? Nan, do you want to walk us through it?
Sure. So we decided that you needed to get the necessary ingredients while heating a griddle or a greased skillet. So we tried to consolidate down and we kind of thought of the griddle as part of the necessary ingredients. And then the consensus was we could either do butter or mayonnaise because different people do different things. And you would spread that on one side of the bread, you lay the bread slices on the griddle. We wanted to try to get as much information in, but still not make it too wordy, so that it made sense. And then put the other piece on top of the bread with the cheese, butter side up, and then you're gonna flip that baby over until it's golden brown on both sides.
Beautiful. I love it. And yes, you brought up a good point. Sometimes, and we've done this activity with others where they're like, wait, their step 2 is actually 3 steps in one. So it is hard to condense it down to just 5 steps, but you guys did a beautiful job. How about group number 2? I've got Kayla, Melanie, Teresa.
I do it.
Thank you.
This is Teresa. Okay, so I was one of the persons that was like, oh my God, there's like 20 million steps in making strawberry shortcake, but we only have 5. So we made it very, very simple. We washed our strawberries, we cut them, we put them in a bowl of sugar, and we put for time's sake, we got those crappy little sponge cakes instead of fresh baked ones. So we put the sponge cakes on the plate, and then we scooped the strawberries into the sponge cakes. And they wouldn't let me have whipped cream because we didn't have a number 6. Otherwise, we would have had whipped cream in there.
How can you even eat it without whipped cream is the question.
I know, right?
That's funny. And then group number 3, we had Jessica, Caitlin, and Margaret. Do any of you want to walk us through the brownie making?
I can. Since we're all very busy professionals, we stuck with the box steps. And I know my computer would be mad because we said open box and bag. So we kind of ran through those instructions really fast. Then we pour ingredients into bowl, mix, pour in pan, and then bake.
I would have to say that would be the way I would make them myself. Who does scratch things? I'm so impressed. All right, and then we'll go to the group number 4. And you guys were making chicken salad. Let's see, who do I have? Carrie, Rachel, and the 2 Susans.
Okay, I will read it, Rachel. It's a little difficult for some of us because we've never made chicken salad before. So, number 1 said chop 1 pound of cooked chicken, 1 celery stalk, and 1 peeled red onion with a knife on a cutting board. Gather, measure mayo, Dijon, and celery seed for step 2. Step 3, put ingredients from step 1 and step 2 in same bowl. Step 4, mix ingredients together in the bowl with a spoon. And step 5, using a spoon. Oh, it's supposed to say place some in a separate bowl to eat and enjoy.
Beautiful. All right. This is, as you all noted, sometimes you get things you've never made before. Sometimes you have steps within steps, or you're trying really hard to keep it down to 5. But what we've done, if we go back to our original slide deck, we've kind of just dipped our toe in the pool of computational thinking. We've played a little bit with our algorithmic thinking. So we've, gone in a stepwise process to solve a problem. I was thinking when I was getting ready for this evening's session that I've done this backwards as well. I lose my phone about maybe at least 10 times a week. And so usually I'm doing a backwards algorithmic thinking, wondering how I can retrace my steps to figure out where I put my phone. We did a little bit with pattern recognition. We observed patterns. We didn't actually solve a problem with those patterns. But when people are putting together a jigsaw puzzle, for example, they're looking for patterns so that they can solve that problem. They can put the jigsaw puzzle together. Decomposition is breaking things down into smaller parts. I think about writing. Often to get to that final product, we've broken writing down into several phases of the process. So we think about generating ideas, we think about drafting, we think about maybe a peer review, and then some revision, and then editing and a final copy. And finally, abstraction. Abstraction is when we take something out of the problem, that's just an extra detail that's really not going to help us. And I always think about math story problems because there always seems to be that extra detail that has nothing to do with solving the problem. It's, something like the marbles were blue, and you're thinking that doesn't help me. But these are steps that we take. And sometimes you'll see too that steps overlap, or that as problem solvers, I might go to algorithmic thinking when someone else goes to abstraction. And it's all okay. I think what we hope is by bringing this, to our classrooms, to our kids, and to thinking about it more intentionally, we do things like build our vocabulary around these steps in the computational thinking process. We think about, kind of an intentional process. We give a purpose to it. We can model any of these: decomposition, pattern recognition, algorithmic thinking. We are able to model what we're, that kind of that visible thinking strategy. We're helping them see, that's what my teacher did to solve the problem. They can follow that. And as we said before, we talked about that efficacy. And I think that oftentimes we forget how important efficacy is for skill to follow. Kids have to have that layer of confidence before they're going to attempt to do something they think they can't do. And then if we think about how we're going to get at all of this in our short time together, we're going to, like we said earlier, really think about literacy as a way. Literacy is kind of our comfort zone as educators, because in some capacity, we're working with literacy all the time. So, whether it's literacy, kind of in the next slide, what we look at literacy, computational thinking is a literacy itself. So the ways that we talk about it, the things that we do, are its own, literacy strand. We also can think about computational thinking through literacy. So that's kind of a part that we're going to embed, and then literacy through computational thinking. So as you can see, none of these are in isolation. We're doing all of this, together, and it's going back to something like the writing process. It's really not in such a stepwise fashion. We're in that kind of recursive stage where we might be thinking of it as literacy, but we're learning about it through literacy, and then we're simultaneously learning more about literacy through computational thinking. So, and again, we're just giving you a stepping off point, something that would be just as familiar to your students, something like a read aloud, as a way for them to start to think about these skills. And then one of the benefits that several of the benefits that we think learning about computational thinking has for teachers is that it helps to grow that tenacity, that our favorite word in Detroit, grit, in students. It fosters that self-confidence, that efficacy. It really does promote inquiry and, as I said earlier, problem-based, place-based. These are ways that we can really get kids involved in the different aspects of learning that are part of our content area. It encourages the development of their reasoning and their evidence to support that reasoning. It promotes innovation, especially this class. It's going to give you an opportunity to think about this in an innovative way. And it provides a focus and purpose for learning. For students, it promotes that use of evidence to solve the problems that they are encountering in any of the content areas they're learning in. Gives them a chance to prove their claims, creates the ability to plan an investigation. It provides the means to solve across all aspects of the curriculum. Definitely promotes their ability to reformulate solutions. Like I said before, there's not one way that we solve problems. And that's the beauty of doing this with our classrooms, is we give kids a chance to collaborate on that, they'll bring their own experiences to that problem solving process. And it nurtures their productivity. But really, again, we believe that simply teaching them these concepts, decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithmic design, will pave the way for all of the things bulleted here. And of course, it overlaps with our ISTE standards. Computational thinking students develop and employ strategies for understanding and solving problems. And I think about all the ways that we are asked to solve problems we said it before, our daily lives, but also our jobs. So this gives them, problem definitions suited for technology-assisted methods, things like data analysis, abstract models, thinking in algorithms or steps. It allows our students to collect data and identify, relevant data, use digital tools to analyze them and represent data in various ways. That allows them to break down problems into, smaller parts, extract that key information, like that abstraction piece, and develop models to understand complex systems. And of course, it helps them understand how things work, especially things that are automated, and use algorithmic thinking to develop a sequence of steps to create and test automated solutions. Now, those are beautiful, standards that our students will reach, but we work with a varying levels of students. So some of these standards might not be, applicable in your context, but I think ultimately one of the things that we want our students to do, somebody in the chat earlier mentioned design thinking. Yes, there is that connection to the idea that they're going to be able to think about how to solve something, test it, gather that data, whether that's informal or formal, and be able to make those adjustments so the thing that they're designing works. And then finally, with our computer science standards, we look at, the core concepts we want our students to know, things like computing systems, networking the internet, data analysis, algorithms and programming, impacts of computing. And of course, we want them to be able to foster an inclusive computing or be part of an inclusive computing culture. And as teachers, that we'll be able to create or help our students create those computational artifacts that they can test and refine, develop and use, using some of those computational thinking skills. So these are kind of loftier goals when we think about how we're getting at this. How we're getting at this is in very familiar territory by using things that we do regularly as teachers, something like a literacy read aloud, and how this overlaps with ways that kids navigate a text, but it also overlaps with the ways that they learn about problems the characters are facing and how those characters solve those problems. One thing that's really stood out to me, and I know this is 1999, the quote is almost 26 years ago, but what we need to be cognizant of is that our 21st century students will read and write more than at any other time in history. So we really need to think about how those problem-solving skills and advanced levels of literacy prime them to be able to perform their future jobs, run their households, act as citizens, and conduct their personal lives. All right, so we're at a point where we've thrown a lot at you in an hour. In one word, in the chat, how are you feeling about computational thinking right now? No wrong answers. Melanie, thank you for saying optimistic. We are always fearful of what will come into the chat. Confident, excited, manageable, curious. This is wonderful. Excited, ready. We're excited too. It's a fun few weeks that we'll be together.
So with that, then just to go back to the next steps. So like Laura said, we've given just a taste of computational thinking. As you move through the course, you'll have opportunities to go a little bit deeper with that, but the nuts and bolts of what does this look like and how are we going to move forward. So just to circle back to the computational thinkers, you did get one of these in your box. So this was developed by Project Tomorrow, which has been contracted with the state of Michigan MDE the last couple of years. So some of you have gone to perhaps some workshops facilitated by either Julie Evans or Katie Marciano, who is our Michigan representative. And so they've developed this, and we really like this not only for the concepts on the left, but for the applications on the right. And so again, I don't think anybody would argue how important all of those skills are for our students. The one thing we just want to mention though is that although, for example, creating is opposite decomposition, these are not necessarily, you know, partnered with the one opposite. So like collaborating could be woven into any of the concepts, creating could be woven into any of the concepts. But again, it just breaks down some of the different skills and concepts that we want our students to develop. And so in your first box, you did receive the top 3 books. So again, spoiler, these are going to be instrumental in some of the work we'll be doing in the second half of this course. And then of course the ISTE computational thinking. So in that book, if you haven't had a chance to flip through there, it not only gives you the ISTE standards, but it gives you some cross-curricular examples of what that might look like at different grade levels, where again, it's not a separate content in and of itself, but what might that look like integrated into your curriculum K-12. And then that leaves us using our computational thinking that the next 2 books might be in your second box because you didn't get them in your first box. So How to Code a Sandcastle and another ISTE book called No Fear Coding. And even though it says across the K-5 curriculum, even if you are somebody who is working at the secondary level, you will still find that book to be relevant because, again, it gives some of the foundational ideas, but it gives you ways that it can be integrated across the curriculum and you can scale that up or down depending on what your grade level is. And so moving forward, we mentioned the roadmap already. So again, using that sort of as your guide, just in case, so that feels maybe a little more linear, but you also got in your box the kind of the guidelines, the directions, if you will, a welcome packet. And so that really is going to help guide your path as well. And so that set of directions correlates with the roadmap. So you should see sequentially that they are parallel. But embedded in that document are links for slide decks that will go deeper into an introduction to computational thinking. And then there's a separate slide deck, for example, for each of the different concepts in computational thinking. So this is where that asynchronous part's going to come in, where when you get the chance to take a deeper dive into those concepts, make some connections to real world examples in addition to some cross-curricular examples as well. So really the premise of the first box is really building that foundational understanding of computational thinking. And again, just a reminder that all of these digital files are linked in that virtual room. So should you misplace that printout, a digital copy of that with the links is in the virtual room. And so the Padlet, which some of you have already gone to with your unboxing videos, thank you for doing that. The Padlet is where we're going to do 2 things. One is this is where we're inviting you to post your learning, post your artifacts, post your reflections, but we also invite you to comment on one another. So as we're trying to build this community, a community is built when we're having conversations with one another and offering feedback. So the commenting is not required, but we are inviting you so that we can lift the expertise and learning of this cohort. So again, it is the Padlet that we'll be using to track our learning, and it will also be what we're using to track for Sketchies. At the very end, we will have a mastery check, which is really just a fancy way to say a feedback survey. And so just to check, where you are now to where you will hopefully be 2 months from now. And then, of course, feedback for us to continue to grow and develop this work that we are doing as well. So right now, again, in your virtual room that is not linked, but we will link that once we get to the second half of the course. And then the progress tracker is again color coordinated to the learning roadmap. So if you're visual and you like to see that one-to-one correlation, it is color coordinated. Laura and I will be monitoring this and doing our best to keep it updated daily. So again, your screen name will be identified once you do the scavenger hunt, and we will use this so then you can see at any point in time, where you're at. If at any point you think you should be at a different point that doesn't match, just please reach out to Laura and I, and we will work on that. But again, between the virtual room, your roadmap, and this tracker, this will hopefully help you feel the progression of the course and the direction that it's going to go. So you have received one box. You will be receiving a second box, and our goal is to get them to before the second meeting, because you're going to need the materials. Today's meeting didn't need the materials quite as much, although you will need the materials to run through the first half of the course. And again, all your directions are in that welcome packet. But for the second synchronous meeting on February 18th, you will want to make sure that you have your box, and we will send follow-up emails to remind you of that, because we are going to be doing some coding with microbits in the second half. And so the next meeting really is more about laying the groundwork for the final project, give everybody some hands-on experience with coding with the microbits, just to make sure that everybody's got at least some foundational understanding of that moving forward. So you really are going to need to have your box and the materials for that second meeting. And then this is kind of a optional bonus opportunity for all of you. We have done, last year we did CT and the D at the DIA. We'll be doing that again this year, and it received pretty good feedback. And so Laura and I were thinking that it might be a great opportunity to bring this cohort to the DIA. So we've been working with Tyler at the DIA. And so this is not required. So we're going to let you know about it. And then we'll do a follow-up email to see if this is something that you might be willing to do, but are you able to do it? But in a best case scenario, we have reserved space at the DIA on April 1st. So we'll be working with Tyler. So the idea is that in the morning we'll meet, and since you'll have already received foundational understanding of computational thinking, it won't be a repeat of that. But what Tyler will be doing is we'll be making some connections to the art, to history. He's got some really great engaging activities, which helps to show that this is infused everywhere. We'll be going out into the museum, in some cases guided by him, but in other cases, be self-guided. And then we'll come back at the very end and pull it all together. The DIA will be funding lunches for everybody. And then the other part of it is, and this was new knowledge for Laura and I, but if you are in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties, the DIA can pay for your subs. They cannot get your sub for you, but they'll work it with your school to reimburse for the cost of the sub. For our friends who are here from Goodrich, he is checking on that because much of the DIA is funded through a millage in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. He needs to just verify that it's okay to do it outside of the Tri-County area. So we'll be in touch with you, but for sure, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb, you could have the expense of your sub covered. So we're excited about it. Again, this is not something that we put out there. The same would be true for Monroe. Yes, Teresa. So we made him aware that there are some people outside of the county, so he felt positive about it, but he's checking with his higher ups to see if that's possible. So as soon as we know, we will let you know. But we think that it's an exciting, if it works out for you, we think it's a really engaging, fun way. And if you've never been to the DIA, it's amazing. And Tyler does a really great job making connections to artwork and the historical aspect of it. And so we're excited to bring that to you too. So we'll do some follow-up with that. We want to put that on your radar. Laura, is there anything I'm missing with that?
I can't think of anything. It's just, I mean, we're so lucky to have Tyler. No matter what, you are going to have an amazing day.
Yeah, he's amazing. When we've gone to him initially last year for the CT and the D, where we thought, that there would be a partnership, he's just taken it to the next level. And I mean, Laura and I actually sit back there and we're learning as well too, because whether it be sculptures or artwork, portraits, he seamlessly integrates the computational thinking concepts into that, but it has you looking at these pieces in a very different way, but also might springboard some ideas on how you might weave not just computational thinking into your curriculum, but how you might weave art into your curriculum too. So we hope that it works out for folks, but we will send some follow-ups. But like I said, we wanted to at least put that on your radar for April 1st, so you could begin some conversations at the building level, and then we will send follow-up information once we have more confirmation from Tyler regarding people outside of the Tri-County area. And so before we go to our last reflection, are there any questions around the flow of how this course is going to work? Any questions around the DIA? As Laura mentioned, we're really excited to be a part of this. We think, we hope that you will find it exciting as well. There's a lot of activities embedded in this. And again, we'll be on it on daily, but you get the opportunity to do this at your own pace. Well, if you still have a question, keep thinking, but if not, we would invite you in the chat, or you can unmute either one insight, one aha, something that has been affirming that you were thinking about this course, or perhaps a question, a wondering, a curiosity, or something that you still have about this course. So an insight, a question, both, please put in the chat and/or feel free to unmute. Seems relevant. Yeah, that's our goal, is to hopefully help you guys see how this is not just one more thing. It really is something to be integrated into the curriculum and can be enriching. Yes. Oh, yay. Yeah, we think the DIA, we thought that we did not, so disclaimer, we did not do the DIA when we ran this course last year, but we had such a positive experience at the CT and the D last spring that Laura and I thought that it would be a great way to not only pull all this learning together in a really fun, engaging way at a really amazing museum, but would be a great way that we could all meet one another in person as well. So again, we will send follow-up information about that, but we hope that it is something that works for everybody. And we recognize that we did not share this information ahead of time. In true transparency, we were working out the details, and we didn't want to put it out there until we were certain that we could make it work. And I love too the vulnerability of just trying. We appreciate that. I feel like I had to fill out something just today on how long we've been in education. I actually had to step back and count how many years, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot. But I am still learning, and it's like if you could have told me decades ago that where I'm at now in education, that I would probably have more questions than I did when I first started teaching, I wouldn't have believed you. But it is exciting to keep learning and growing and trying new and different things. So we are we genuinely are excited to be on this learning journey with you guys. So we really want to thank you guys for being here this evening on this very cold evening. I know many of you have a snow day tomorrow. Laura and I will be thinking of all of you And but really want to thank you for participating in this, for joining us tonight, and know that Laura and I are just an email away if you need anything throughout this entire course. So with that, Laura, is there any parting thoughts that you have?
No, just looking forward to it. And if you have any questions ever, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help.
All right, well, with that, we will give you back 10 minutes, where we will stay on board if you want to ask anything. But other than that, have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to learning with you. 4 have curled lines, 2 have rigid lines, so there's a pattern within the pattern.